So I've spent the last week living with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold8, and I'll be upfront with you, it completely flipped how I feel about Apple's upcoming foldable iPhone. I went into this pretty skeptical that Apple actually couldn't move a lot of these because of the rumored price. A week later, I've done a full 180. So the first half of this video is my honest take on actually using the Z Fold8 every day. Not really a review of the device per se, but more so how I enjoyed using this device and how I'm going to be using Apple's, because it's going to be very, very much the same. And Apple's Foldable has entered production, and we expect it in just less than a couple of months here in September for the keynote. So let's start with the Galaxy Z Fold8, because the reason why it matters so much for Apple, again, is the size and the form factor. This is the newer, wider Z Fold8, not the taller Fold 8 Ultra. And the dimensions are the whole story. So closed, it's a 5.5-inch cover screen that works like a normal phone. If you open it up, you get a 7.6-inch inner display with a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is basically the same shape and feel of a small iPad mini. And that is the part that clicked for me, because the older foldables, they were tall, they were narrow. So when they were folded, it felt like a TV remote. And when you unfold it, it was even more awkward, especially when trying to watch content or look at stuff on the web. This form factor just fixes all of that. If you close it, it's like a real phone. Sure, it's a little bit chunky, but you can use this legitimately one-handed, no problem, and you don't really need to think about it. And then again, when you open it up, it's like an iPad mini. And that makes it genuinely useful for watching video or running multiple apps next to each other at one time. So living with it, this form factor is honestly close to perfect and how I actually would like to use a phone. It's been great to just use the cover screen to fire off texts, do basic phone stuff that you would on any other iPhone. I can sit down and read things on here. I can, again, respond to emails, get work done. It's not a problem. And then when I really need more space, I can open it up, and there's no compromise here on what I can do. I can watch movies on a plane, out and about. You can do whatever you need to do on a larger display, run multiple apps, have these instances of great multitasking at any point in time. And that's the level of flexibility that I would really like in an iPhone. And we've just never had that before.
Now, before we get into the rest of this video, I just want to take a quick minute to tell you more about today's sponsor, Incogni. Scams, identity theft, stalking. They all start with your personal data being exposed online. Your home address, phone number, relatives, even detailed background information can be sitting on people search sites, data broker databases, and random directories without you even knowing. Anyone can access it. So that's where Incogni comes in. Incogni automatically tracks down and removes your personal data from hundreds of data brokers and people search sites. And because your data can reappear over time, they send repeated removal requests so it stays gone. It's completely hands-off. You create your account, give one-time authorization, and they handle the outreach and follow-ups for you. And if you really want full coverage, their unlimited plan includes custom removals. So if you Google yourself and find your info is exposed on a site that isn't part of their automated network, you can copy that link into your Incogni dashboard and submit it. Their dedicated privacy experts will review it and work to get your personal information removed. This covers almost anything online except government sites, criminal conviction publications, social media, blogs, and forums. They can't harm you if they can't find you. Take back control of your personal data with Incogni. Use our code at the link in the description down below and get 60% off annual Incogni plans. Thanks, Incogni, for sponsoring this video.
One thing I do want to say is not everything plays well with this form factor, and maybe this is a developer thing. I know in WWDC 2026, there was a video floating around from one of the sessions about how apps can now automatically resize itself to fit all sorts of different screens and aspect ratios. And that's going to be important here because while the experience isn't awful with some of the apps that aren't fully optimized, or maybe the specific portions of the app just aren't fully optimized, it's not the best. Instagram, for example, or any kind of vertical video is the main thing that pops into my mind. So Reels specifically is just kind of an awkward experience on here. TikTok as well. I find myself, on the cover screen, it's okay, but it's not the best. There's a lot of, vertical borders on the left and right side. And then when you open it up, you kind of just get a bigger version of that. I tend to go in in portrait mode. And that kind of helps mitigate things. This isn't maybe necessarily an app perspective. Maybe it's just the videos, vertical video sizes might change in the future. Maybe Apple will make these into something that are so popular, it changes the landscape on how people create videos. And when they export it out, maybe it's set for a specific aspect ratio for foldables. I don't know. I think, honestly, if the app could just automatically resize it, maybe some things kind of crop in a little bit. This is something that we'll have to see how this plays out in the future. But yeah, that's just one of the only pain points. And again, with videos, when you have it in landscape like this, there is going to be some borders that it's better than what some of the other foldables were like in the past, but it could still use some work on how we can best utilize all of that screen real estate. Now, when it comes to cameras, this is a dual lens camera system, and I'll be honest, they're fine. And I mean that as a compliment more so than a knock. The main sensor is good. I got shots out of it that I was pretty happy with, especially out and about, in good lighting, and it held up better than I was expected for a phone like this. I don't really want to focus so much on the camera quality here because it's pretty similar to what Samsung has actually put out in the past, albeit not their highest or, main camera sensor like the 200 megapixel that you'll see in some of the Ultra phones. It's the 50 meg that's fine. It's good enough for everyday use. And that's the same thing with the ultra wide sensor here too. It's not a telephoto. But the real thing I was curious about is how living with just 2 cameras would be instead of having the 3 that I'm used to. And again, it's totally fine. I think not having a telephoto lens is going to show its face sometimes. The digital zoom with Samsung is very, very good, but even then I would still just want something optical. But yeah, you're not going to get that. And if that's something that you really, really need, then you're just going to need to stick with the Pro iPhones for those cameras. But if you're okay with just getting really good main sensor pictures, and then if you need an ultra wide, you can use that as well, then this phone will be more than enough for you. Then there's the price argument, and this is kind of where I've done my whole 180 because Samsung is asking for $18.99 in the US for that. And this is a lot of money, but kind of where a lot of the other foldables have been priced in the past. But after a week with it, I think this is going to sell really, really well. I think Samsung's going to sell a ton of these, and I think Apple, when Apple comes out with its own phone just like this, it's going to sell a ton. The problem is Apple is rumored to be priced at anywhere from $18.99 or this same price point as this phone to roughly $2,500, with some configurations maybe reaching up to $3,000. And that is a ton. And I think over the last few months, especially on the podcast, which by the way, if you haven't checked out the MacRumors Show podcast by now, please do so. But on the podcast, I think I've said that that's going to sink this phone. I think that the price is going to sink the phone, and not a lot of casual people out there who are just Apple fans that want the latest and greatest are going to even check it out. But honestly, I was wrong. I took this phone to a lot of people and said, what do you think about it? Apple's going to be making something very, very similar. Knowing that you're an iPhone user, would you buy something like this? And a lot of people said, yeah, absolutely. I think it's chic. I think it's kind of trendy looking. And I like that you can have a lot of productivity on the inner screen and then still use your phone normally with the outer screen. And with that level of thinking, I think Apple is probably going to crush it, especially with that crack marketing team behind it. So yeah, I've done a complete 180. I don't think the price is going to be that big of a deal, especially with Apple recently launching its new Apple upgrade. And so leasing offers are really good there. And you could probably lease this phone for, I don't know, maybe $50 a month. And if it was something like that, I think that takes the sticker price shock that might come with this phone and take it down a notch. So a lot of people are probably going to end up financing this phone and giving it a shot for a couple of years to see if they like it. Now, one rumor that I've heard for years about Apple's upcoming foldable, and maybe this is the reason why it's just taken so long, is the crease. Samsung was touting just how, hardly noticeable this crease is and that it blends in really well. You can still see it from here pretty easily, especially when the light glares on it. You really can't feel it though, and that's pretty impressive. But yeah, you're going to notice it. For me, it hasn't been an issue. I've been used to foldables. I've been testing so many out for years. I don't really care about the crease, but for people who've never used one before, it might be an issue. Rumors have been up and down with this. Apparently, Apple has been chasing a nearly invisible crease regardless of cost, with a crease depth under 0.15 millimeters and a fold angle under 2.5 degrees, which in plain terms means it should be shallow enough that you mostly won't see it or feel it. I'm guessing similar to this. Now, getting there took ultra-thin glass on top, a Samsung-made display panel that bakes the touch layer directly into the screen to shave off nearly 20% of the thickness, a flexible adhesive so the panel bends without cracking, and a liquid metal hinge that's tougher than titanium alloy, all wrapped in a frame that mixes titanium and aluminum. Again, I still don't buy that it's actually going to be much better than what you have here. With this phone, I don't really feel the crease at all. It's barely noticeable. You can still kind of see it though. I don't know how much better it's going to be. I can't wait to see how this plays out in less than a couple of months though. Now, the compromises, because a device this thin can't carry everything, the biggest one is going to be Face ID. That's going to be a problem. So I don't know how people are going to like it. I don't love having a fingerprint sensor on this one here, specifically in the power button and other foldables like this. I just think it feels really weird and hard to distinguish where that button is compared to the other buttons on this. And it's just going to take some getting used to. But yeah, I'm going to miss Face ID, which is funny because when Face ID replaced Touch ID back in the iPhone X, I was complaining that I was going to miss Touch ID, but that's a completely different thing because it was a home button that was right there that we were used to for so many years. So yeah, it's something that I'm going to have to get used to, just like not having a telephoto lens. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but it's going to take some getting used to again. The battery is one of the bright spots. Rumors put it at a 5,400 to 5,800 milliamp hour range, which would be the largest battery that Apple has ever put in an iPhone, ahead of the 5,088 milliamp hours in the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So the thinnest iPhone could also be the one with the most capacity. It's going to have multiple batteries. It's going to be running the new A20 chip on a 2nm process with 12 gigabytes of RAM and a vapor chamber cooling system and some expanded satellite features, all par for the course with the iPhone. Going back to the battery part real quick, I believe this Z Fold8 is actually hosting a 4,800 milliamp hour battery, and battery life has been fine for the most part, but something 1,000 milliamp hours more, around 5,800, which is the rumor, could be really great for a device like this. Now, a folding screen only matters if the software does something with it. And this is the part I care the most about because after my week with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold8, I'm curious to see how Apple is going to optimize iOS. The inner display is so close to an iPad mini in size, the iPhone Ultra is expected to be able to run two apps side by side for the first time on an iPhone with the iPad-style sidebars. It won't run full iPad OS, it won't run iPad apps, so keep your expectations reasonable, but Apple is clearly building towards this, and we've seen, again, hints in iOS 27, which I've covered before and mentioned earlier, but the frameworks picked up references to folding states and hinge angles, and Apple started pushing developers hard to make apps resize to any shape instead of one fixed size. And it might even be as simple as, a box that you have to check and allow it to just automatically resize. I don't know, but my real ask here is that Apple might go a little bit further in the future and make it so that there's some other cool things that you can do with this, because Samsung does a pretty good job of optimizing its software for this. And I want to see what Apple can do. And I hope developers really take advantage of it as well. And so, yeah, with all of that in mind and just knowing how expensive this is going to be, it could be anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500 and maybe some configurations reaching up to $3,000. Is this something that you would pick up? Personally, I think a lot of you are going to after you actually use one. Knowing that this could be an iPhone and iPad replacement for a lot of you out there, I think it makes a lot of sense. I could use this for traveling and not have to bring my iPad anymore, which to me sounds fantastic because I just don't love lugging all this stuff around. If I've got my phone, then I could then unfold into a tablet and get some extra screen real estate and, be able to get a little bit of extra work done, multitask with multiple apps side by side, or just watch content on a bigger display without having to bring a secondary one. Is it for me? And I think it could be appealing to you, but I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. We're expecting this to launch in September. Whether or not it actually starts shipping, it might be in short supply, so it could end up shipping a few weeks to maybe a month later. But we're expecting Apple to debut this alongside the iPhone 18 and 18 Pro in September. So would love to hear from you in the comments down below. I'll definitely be going hands-on with it, reviewing it. Again, if you're somebody out there who doesn't really care about platforms and you just want a good foldable right now, I would highly suggest picking up this Samsung one. I think this is fantastic. But if you're waiting for Apple, would love to hear all of your thoughts down in those comments. This is Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.